Hi all, welcome again to another episode of Naturang Batas, Likas at Tama. Our episode for today will be a discussion on checks and balances. What exactly is checks and balances? Does it have anything to do with money, as my director just mentioned today? These and other questions we will be discussing with our quite important and educated guest. Our guests for today are all our friends, and I'm quite honored that they blessed us with their presence. To my left is one of our foremost constitutionalists, Dean Amado Valdez of the University of the East.
Good day,
Hi. Dean Valdez is also, of course, my dean when I teach there for Public International Law. And beside him is, I think, is the newest faculty member of the University of the East, Elmer Rabuya, one of our youngest civil law experts. So young and so civil. Yeah. And beside him is political economy expert David Rosario.
Thanks for inviting me again.
Okay. Dean Valdez, first question goes to you. What is exactly checks and balances?
Check and balance simply means that in the first place there should be balance. In anything we do, there should not be any excess. We heard of the word moderation. In approaching any kind of endeavor, you need balance, but to maintain that balance there should be checks, and in government the reason for the check and balance is that all the three departments of government, executive, legislative, and judiciary, were given their own respective powers. So if one acts in excess of his power, there must be some check from the other departments.
You mean for example, yung presidente, yung sa Congress, at saka yung Supreme Court natin?
Yung tatlong departments natin.
Pero ang ibig sabihin ba ng checks and balances is yung magkontrahan sila? Yung, kumbaga, pag may ginawa ito, kukontrahin ng kabila. Yung ba ibig sabihin nun?
Yung ibig sabihin nun, kaya prinimiss ko doon sa balance, once the balance of government is upset, one or the other should come in order to maintain that balance. Yung executive department, there are powers na enumerated do sa constitution na gagawin niya. Kung halimbawa mag-declare siya ng martial law at ilalagay niya sa sarili niya buong kapangyarihan, then the courts can come in and say hanggang diyan ka lang. So that means check and balance. Kung ang judiciary naman, yung justices ng Supreme Court ay they would go beyond their functions as members of the judiciary. Halimbawa, they make decisions which are not proper, and it's attended by culpable violation of the Constitution, bribery, betrayal, public trust, which are enumerated in the Constitution. They can be impeached by Congress.
The Congress.
Kung executive naman is halimbawa members of the executive department, they are not doing their job, kailangan trabahoin nila, Congress can withhold paying them the necessary funds for the operation of their offices.
So it doesn't mean na kunyari pag ang Supreme Court ay in-overturn ng isang batas ng Congress, it doesn't mean na sinasabi ng Supreme Court na mas malakas kami sa iyo at dapat sumunod kayo sa sinabi namin.
Hindi yun ang ibig sabihin, sapagkat pag nag-overturn naman yung Supreme Court ng isang legislation coming from Congress, i-base niya doon sa isang standard. At ang standard na yan yung nasa Constitution. Okay. Pwede niya sabihin na unconstitutional yan. So it has to be a dead law because it is against the Constitution.
Elmer, si Dean Valdez was talking about yung equal branches of government. So, kasi I think people have this impression na ang pinaka number one official natin is the president. Is that true? Or actually, it probably means something else kasi they're supposed to be equal. What does co-equal branches of government mean?
Siguro, the idea kung bakit sinasabi nilang the president is the most powerful person in the country is because pagdating sa executive, isang tao lang may hawak.
Pero ang plate number niya, 1. So Supreme Court 8. So does that mean that he is really higher?
No, under our system of government, we have the government is divided into 3 branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. All 3 are co-equal. Kaya ang problema in the executive power resides only in the office of the president. Isang tao lang yon. But of course, the president can exercise his powers through his alter egos. Pagdating sa legislative, marami sila. There are 2 houses. Collegial ang Supreme Court natin. Siguro, ganun ang impression.
But Dean Valdez, if I may go back, but this form of government natin is, I think, more or less bago. I mean, kung titingnan natin yung mga gobyerno at saka yung mga paano paggawa ng batas ng mga sa unang araw, for example, mga hari or mga kings ang naging parang pinaka-leader ng bansa. So, kumbaga ang checks and balances, would you say, sa bagong thing lang yan?
Itong check and balance natin, hindi naman Filipino origin yan. In fact, just to add to Elmer's statement, kaya sinasabing co-equal because there are checks. Arisin mo yung check, talagang yung president ang pinaka-powerful, kaya number 1. But the reason why they become co-equal in coordinates because there are checks. Kaya importante na may check and balance. Itong as early as 16th century, meron ng check yung King of England doon sa Magna Carta nila doon, ano. But that check was anything that the king should do should respect the rights of the people. And then it evolved na naging check on the one department against the other. But meron pa ring check yan. There's still a check against the government. As far as the people are concerned, merong nakalagay sa Constitution, yung Bill of Rights, yun ang guarantee sa kanila, and this is an inherent check on the part on the President, on Congress, na hindi sila makagawa na legislation that will violate the Bill of Rights na enumerated sa Constitution.
You have anything to add?
To add to what Dean Valdez said, another historical account of checks and balances is, well, nung French Revolution. During that time, there was a king, absolute powers. He had absolute power, yung King of France. Then, eventually, kept abusing this power. Well, long story short, napikon yung tao, and they felt that they had to limit his unlimited powers. So they began now the checks and balances na, no, hindi na absolute power. Now, even the people have their say on how things go about.
But when you look at the British government, correct me if I'm wrong, they work under a parliamentary form of government, and your executive nila would also form part of their legislative branch. So, would that be fair to say that there is no checks and balances as far as the British government is concerned? And if that's the case, then what is the need pa pala for a checks and balance, considering na pwede pala mag-work without the checks and balances?
Yung check and balance nila is shortened sapagkat yung members of the cabinet or the government comes from the parliament. At ang check doon is as far as that they have to maintain their majority. So kung yung majority will be threatened because the government becomes unpopular, at the next election, matatalo sila. That's why they have the response. The response is immediate in the parliamentary form of government because the majority will remove the members of their government who are contributing to the unpopularity of that government. So they can maintain the majority, that they are majority in power. And then when the election comes, sabihin nila, we have changed, we have initiated policies, and if the people will say that the change was made correctly, then they have to restore that majority. Otherwise, if that majority will not act against an erring Minister of Defense or Minister of the Treasury, for example, then at the next election, they will be booted out of power.
Where does their judiciary fit in? Kumbaga yung Supreme Court nila, part din ng legislative branch? Tama ba yun?
They have their own judiciary, although in the English system, sometimes there is an appeal that is made to the parliament. Meron silang tinatawag na another level there, where they are exercising some judicial powers above the hierarchy of the usual judicial system, the judicial department.
As well as we know, itong constitution natin is more or less matatrace natin yung development dyan sa US Constitution. And the US, as we know, more or less was a colony before of the United Kingdom or Great Britain. But my interesting question, the thing I'm interested in is, bakit nung US, nung sila naman gumawa ng constitution, hindi nila inadopt yung sa former colonizer nila? tayo kasi in-adapt natin sa atin eh. Sila parang hindi nila in-adapt. From a monarchy, what they did was they went into this type of government that they had. Why was that? Bakit bigla nag-3 branches of government sila? Anybody? David?
Well, I guess the easiest answer is because the reason why they left the United Kingdom in the first place is kasi galit sila sa monarchy, galit sila sa king. Back then, yung king, he had all these powers. In fact, sa sobrang dami niyang powers, he actually even made himself the head of the Church of England. And this led to certain religious persecution na hindi nagustuhan ng mga tao. So they decided to leave England and they ended up in America, North America. And from there, that's where they began thinking that we don't want to come up with this. We didn't leave the United Kingdom to come up with the same kingdom here. We want something different na mas makakatulong sa atin, hindi ganun ka-harsh yung leader, something we can actually enjoy and live in properly. So I guess that's why they didn't just adopt their old ways from the United Kingdom.
That's an interesting point. We'll take up more on that when we come back, but we have to take a break. We'll discuss more on checks and balances in a bit, but do stay with us. Thank you.